All right, welcome back to the Ember Podcast. We're a show all about Ashes of Creation, and today is going to be about Alpha 1, what we can expect, what we hope to see in it. Today, my co-hosts are going to be Ark of Silence and Doomfet, both members of Ember, which in my opinion is one of the best guilds out there right now. We're going to be growing and getting our name out there the longer we're up and running. But today we're going to be talking all about Alpha 1. So why don't we start off with some quick introductions. Ark of Silence, go first. Just say a little hello.
Hello, I'm Ark of Silence. I'm not a streamer or anything like that. Don't expect to find me anywhere on the internet. I'm just loving what Ashes of Creation is going to be about and ready to talk about it in depth.
I'm Doomfed. You can find me on the forums. I'm glad to be back, and this is going to be a great topic.
Outstanding. Well, welcome on board, Ark. Welcome back, Doomfet. So first topic today, and it's going to be a bit of a roundtable discussion, guys. So feel free to jump in when you have a thought or opinion about it. But first part of it is going to be the timetable of Phase 1 and 2 of Alpha 1 and what we can expect from that. So as we know, it is going to be actually split into two different phases. That newsletter just got sent out yesterday. So that first phase is starting next month, probably near the middle or the end of September. So really, really soon. Which, as someone who's been waiting over a year at this point, well over a year now, I'm hyped. I'm really excited for it. Let's start off with our new guest, Ark. What is it that you're looking forward to here with this first test next month?
Mostly, I'm gonna enjoy seeing all the different NPCs that they've created. They're gonna do a horde mode for the city defense that I'm really excited to see. We're gonna be able to basically test all those NPCs and fight them pretty much right out of the gate, so this is going to be pretty awesome.
Oh yeah. I think they even mentioned that there's going to be some boss mechanics in that horde mode too, which that sounds like a lot of fun, honestly. Even though they said that, won't be in the end game, for us as far as testing purposes go, I couldn't think of a better way to test, just the ability to have lots and lots of NPCs in one area, the ability to see how combat works, and I think it's been a lot of fun. Doomfed, what's your opinion on it? What are you looking forward to that first phase?
Well, mine, I'm a little different. I like to see all the bugs that come with Alpha, just because I feel like I'm actually helping when it comes down to the bugs. The little stuff where it's like, oh, hey, maybe someone may have skipped over that. But yet in the future, it could become a problem for certain people. Like, for instance, previous MMOs where you'd go down and pick up loot and you'd get stuck there kneeling down. And then another bug would kick in and you'd fall through the world. Mm-hmm. A lot of people didn't experience it, but it did happen. And then you couldn't get back to your body. So it was a big problem if it did happen to you. Finding stuff like that is always fun for me.
Oh, yeah. I think that's probably 98% of what this alpha is meant to test, is to make sure that, hey, does this actually connect with this person over there? When it does connect, as far as the skill goes, is it doing what it's supposed to do? There's a lot there as far as, what they hope for us to break and for them to be able to actually build out and for us to test it. Just reading from what the newsletter was saying, they did say that it's going to include open world battlegrounds. It's going to include the castle sieges and city defense, which will be a horde mode. So basically you'll be defending your node against, I guess, almost like what we would expect from, like if a monster attacked our node in the world later on, right? There's going to be a lot there that, we're going to actually be able to break for them, be able to see if it actually works correctly in the first place. They mentioned that the first couple days will be just a couple hours long. I'm guessing those phases will be just people trying to log in for the first time. They even mentioned it once in a stream, so I don't have to worry about breaking NDA about this. But the Windmill of Doom, which is the boss of the loading screen, which is going to be pretty fun. As far as open world battlegrounds, what do you guys expect to see from that? Do you expect to see fleshed out mechanics? Do you expect to see anything in particular from the open world battlegrounds?
With the open battlegrounds, I just kind of hope to see a fluent of just coming and going. Really, that's all I really care to see, because I'm not really worried about animations, if things are really connecting at this point. I just wanted to see how fluent everything is moving, because at that point, that's a big problem. Is you know, one person may be here, then they jump over there, and then so on and so forth. It just comes back to the bug issues, because if things are super buggy and when product is released, people are not going to be happy. And I know there's lots of testing phases in between, but I just like to see how within a short period of time frame that they've come out with, just to give us Alpha 1. I mean, hell, this is quick. This is a surprise, like next month. Like, what? And I just want to see how far ahead of schedule they are to see how well everything's doing.
Well, yeah. Plus, if they have those issues, you really can't test very well either. If they're going to put hundreds of people into an arena and you can't really even play it very much, how are they going to test all the action combat mechanics that they want to do?
Right, exactly, man. And that's the thing, like, with that many people in that small of an area, because, I mean, these tests are going to be huge. Like, that's a lot of people they have signed up. They have 8,500 people right now signed up for it currently. You know, obviously, a lot of people are going to be wanting to play that first day. There's going to be at least a couple thousand per server that are going to be on, and they said they had, you know, 2 servers, so it's going to be an insanely large amount of people that are jumping on to this at one point, using all these different skills, using all these different flashy moves or abilities. You know, it's going to be a real test to see if their netcode, if their servers can hold up to that. If it can do it here before they have everything completely optimized, even after like the first couple weeks, you know, without people crashing left and right or without the game crashing, that's a huge sign for us of whether or not this game is going to succeed.
I really hope I see someone crash, or they're just charging at me and they're just like, oh,
right?
You got him. Because then that's showing that there's things to progress. And it's just, to me, that right there is funny, because I've beta tested WildStar. I alpha tested World of Warcraft all the way back then. And man, I was like 13? No, 15, something like that. And I honestly didn't know what I was doing, but somehow I got the alpha testing, and it was awesome because I got to experience things that, you know, you wouldn't see in game. And showing people come at you and then they stop, or you see like an NPC bug and then they one-shot you or something. To me, it's fun. A lot of people may not see it that way, but to me it's fun. I'm like, what happened? And then I, you know, put 2 and 2 together, and then, you know, I don't know, it's just a lot of fun.
I don't know if I'm really looking forward to that, but it would be very entertaining.
Oh yeah. I mean, as far as like, you know, even modern games that are quote unquote early access, you have a lot of these issues even past the early access phase. You have them into launch, you know. Bless Online was a perfect example of that. You know, when myself and DA were fighting off a world boss, when we first engaged it, we only had 34 people with us. More than 2/3 of our group crashed immediately as soon as we engaged it. The server couldn't handle that many people in a small area, which is insane. Like that's nothing. That's like less than what you should have in their regular battleground modes. But the fact is that, you know, that in Ashes so far, they've already told us in one of the tests that they were able to handle well over that amount in a small area. So that's very it's very kind of like telling of what their foundation is, telling of what their base is that they're working with, the Alpha 0 testing that they've done so far, you know, which has been meant to kind of create that netcode, create this this server stability, so that way when we get into Alpha 1, we can focus more on the bugs and the combat. So I'm hoping to see a lot of success there for them, because it's a good sign from this early on. Go ahead.
And necessity kind of breeds creativity too, because they have to be able to accommodate those hundreds of people in one area to have the game work at all, because their goal is to have those kind of scale raids and PvP rolled events. So I think that they're probably forced into making it a lot better, a lot quicker than most like things like Bless had to.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Bless was around for what, I think like 4 or 5 years before it actually hit the NA market. And they still can get it right, you know. But that's the thing with Ashes. You know, it's an unproven team, it's an unproven studio, but they're already doing more than what we've seen a lot of other production companies that have been out for years do. So, I mean, with that, I'm hoping for the best for them, especially with this first test phase. Let's kind of move on to the next section here. Just one second. So the next part of it was the castle sieges. Now this is going to be kind of interesting to see if they do have the mechanics built in, because we got to hear quite a lot about it, right? Steven told us quite a lot about how it's expected to work. What is the first thing you're going to try to do in the castle siege itself? How do you plan to strategize around that? How do you plan to go test that? We'll start off with Doomvet first.
Okay, so going into this, when Steven talked the other day about the castle sieges, and someone brought up the question of, do we have to move all the catapults / ballistas, or are they placed? Well, it was technically, as his answer was, is they're placed strategically around the castle. So my goal, knowing that now, is to learn the spots of these points of these different catapults and ballistas. So it gives me a future reference. I mean, it could switch, of course, but for right now, it could give me a general idea of strategizing. Okay, well, this is here, this is here, this is here. Well, let's put our casters and ranged on this one, and then have our melee and such go on this one, so on and so forth. So it just gives a better idea of strategizing to hopefully defend against a siege.
Yeah, I can see that. Actually, one thing I want to test out with it is to see if you can break the game as far as like what groups you can compile, right? Because, I mean, realistically, if you put 30 mages together and then just have them teleport next to someone, pretty sure that's going to cause some issues on their side.
Someone's going to teleport through the world.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just that much action going on at once. You know, just to see if like maybe you could teleport through the wall and get to another point that much quicker. You know, like there's gonna be a lot there that you can kind of break just through the basic skills that you have as your class. For example, with the Rangers, you know, we know that they have a dash mechanic, right? Well, can you physically stop maybe 20, 30 Rangers just sprinting through an area? Can you hit them with enough DPS or snares to slow them down before they can get through?
Or, I just thought of this, or you just have one tank throw up the wall and we'll just watch them all go.
Yeah, could one tank like stop 30 Rangers? Yeah,
right.
It's very possible.
It is possible, man. So those are all things we can test out. I mean, like with the tank mechanic, for example, does it have a limit for how many people can go through it before it stops working? Like, or is it unlimited? You know, like, is it just like have 12 tanks rolled up on one spot and just keep putting up their walls as soon as the cooldown works?
Or can you break them down?
Or just have, like you were saying about 30 mages, have just 30 tanks with 30 walls and see if you can even hit the ballistas.
Right. I mean, even like a cleric ball, for example. You know, like you could technically just put a bunch of clerics together in one area, have them right next to the tanks. You could literally create a fortress that no one could ever pass by, because you just have constant heals, constant regeneration, and then also a block right there for them. So there's gonna be an interesting take on how they can try to balance that, if that's even possible in this sense. And I think that because it technically is open world and it technically doesn't limit you to what team compilations you can have, I think it's going to be possible. I think it's going to be something that we can see in the world, that there's going to be cheese mechanics as far as what guilds can come up with, what we can come up with, especially in this first testing phases, before they can go, oh my god, this is going to be broken if we don't fix it right now.
Yeah, there's going to be some serious cheese.
Oh yeah. I'm excited for it, man. I mean, we have a member in our guild called the Prince of Cheese, so we'll be seeing how we can implement that and maybe get some JC stuff going on for Alpha 1. All right, so the next portion of it is going to be adaptive AI mechanics in the Horde mode. This is going to be going along with the city defense. So they did mention that there will be a boss, there will be adaptive AI mechanics. What do you guys think that's going to mean, or like what we're going to see from that?
You want to take this one?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I can give you some guesses about it's going to be based on, one, obviously they're not going to just stand there and let you beat on them. They're going to move out of the way and probably find a better vantage point. And two, they're going to know probably a little bit your weaknesses.
Now,
that's what I hope for, is what he just said, the weakness,
Yeah.
where it's going to notice the healer or the healers and try to take them out first.
I hope so, man. That would actually be pretty interesting. I wonder if that's something that you could prepare for in that sense, because it does say it's adaptive. It does say that it's adaptive. I'm wondering if that's almost like the bots that learn like the game of Go or the game of chess, right? That, you know, they'll play through so many different times until they get so good that you can't beat them. Because I mean that is what an adaptive AI is. I wonder how much they're actually putting into that. If it's actually going to be that level where it can actually learn, and you know, it will figure out the strategies that work against it, and will actually start putting out countermeasures. That's going to be really interesting to see, because they could technically take all that research, if it does get that good, and put it into some of the high-end, world event, world bosses that come out to your nodes later on.
Ooh, yeah, and especially about those high-end world bosses, since they said they're going to be in stages, they are going to be able to take that information from maybe a previous, encounter, and the thing would be more learned about how it was defeated the next time you encounter it, because the next stage could be a month from when you initially encountered them.
See, now that right there is, okay, so let's say month 1 got it on farm for so long, but then month 2, as it adapted and, learned everything, then it's not on farm anymore, a raid boss. And that is what helps people. Where, like, I know other people who are into MMOs are like, man, this is stupid. We have it on farm. There's no challenge, etc. Well, this is the challenge, is that it's learned from us. So now we have to learn off of it, because it learned off of us, and it just makes it fresh. It makes it new. It makes it challenging. And it's not going to be on farm anymore, because you're not going to know what it's going to do.
Yeah. I mean, Steven himself said that they do plan to have some raids in the game that will be so hard that I think they said like less than 10% of players, less than 10% of raiders will actually be able to beat it. Which to me, from a hardcore perspective, I love that. That's like you were saying, Doomfed, that's replayability. That's actually a challenge. That's why people play games like Dark Souls, the games that kick their butt, because that challenge is there. With like WoW, for example, even when you get up into like the mythic raids, once you learn those mechanics and you have a set team that's good, you can just keep farming it. You can keep doing it again and again. If you have a terrible team that's never done it, yeah, it's hard at that point because you have people messing up. But if you have people that know what they're doing, it's a matter of clockwork at that point. People aren't making mistakes. You can actually just get through it pretty quick and easy. So I'm hoping for these mechanics that, you really do see some changing elements that you can't necessarily prepare for, that you have to adapt for in the moment, because that's going to be a whole new meaning to the word action in the sense of raids. You actually have to be adapting right then and there. What do you guys think about that? Like, what do you think more about that topic specifically? And let's go with Ark on that one.
Well, I do love the fact that he said it'll be in single digits for some of the content as far as who's going to be able to accomplish it. But I think there's going to be a lot more to how it does that. It's not just going to be because it's an adaptive AI. It's because the dungeon's going to change itself. It's not going to be the same run through every time as well. So you're going to encounter larger mobs or less mobs, or they're going to have different shields, or I don't know how exactly they're going to do it. But there's going to be a lot more to changing each encounter than just, now the boss has an ice shield where he didn't before. His goal is to make it not farmable. Every time you go in, it should be slightly different or a lot different, to the point where all of a sudden this group's not working. We need to get some extra mages in here or something. You're going to have to adapt to the boss.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that kind of goes into the next question I was going to talk about, which is team comp. We know that they've said during the Alpha 1 phase that they're going to have 4 playable races and the 8 archetypes for each class. They've said previously as well that when it comes to team comps, they want you to have to kind of pick one of each. You know, they want them to be that valuable, so where if you don't have that one person that fills like that bard role or fills that that DPS role, it's going to be almost too difficult to complete something, right? So I'm wondering how that will play into the adaptive mechanics of the AI. If that's something that's going to be still necessary at that point, if it can figure out that, hey, this bard is buffing consistently, now we have to kill this bard, and it starts targeting just the bard on it. I wonder how that's going to play out. Doomfit, what's your ideas about that?
Okay, not only that, I also want to touch bases off of, let's say you're a magic heavy party. Maybe it gets more spell resistance, or so on and so forth, where this brings diversity back to the group. Because there's always going to be a cookie cutter, I hate to say that, a cookie cutter group or build for anything, especially in MMOs. People are going to find out what's the best, what's producing the best, and how to just produce the best as a group. It's going to happen. It's going to take a while, but it will happen. But with the adaptive AI added into this equation, it's gonna see, all right, well, let's say the best right now is 5 mages, or let's see, the group size is 8, correct? For dungeons?
Yep.
Okay, so let's say it's 3 mages, 2 rogues, a tank, and a heal. Or 2 heals. And it's gonna realize, oh, hey, they're magic heavy, including the clerics. Well, it gets that spell resistance where you're gonna be like, okay, well, now we need a hunter. Or I'm sorry, a ranger. Or we need a warrior, or fighter. Sorry, using WoW terms here. And it makes you have to change up your group, which means people can be used. And not only that, I hope it goes that way for tanks as well. Let's say you're in a raid and it realizes you're a paladin who's good at negating magic damage. Well, if it does lots of magic damage, maybe I'll switch it up and start doing claw and bite attacks, where you're just going to need a actual just pure up tank, full up, and he can neglect all the physical damage. And so then you have both, which you will be like flip-flopping and taunting off of each other to help tank this boss. And then next week it could be something else. But it just brings all 64 classes in a roundabout way, or that's what I'm hoping for, by it changing.
That'd be really cool. I mean, they did say that they want a 40-man raid too, so I'm wondering if part of that 40-man raid is you're going to need to really think out your team comps for these different situations. Because they've said that the actual party size is 8, but if you have a raid team of 40 people, that's so many different combinations that you can have that will potentially help you either succeed or, you may not be able to, right? Because it may evolve on you to where all of a sudden that prior composition you had on the front lines is now useless. So I'm wondering if that part of that 40-man raid will actually be switching out people on your front lines, changing out the roles as they go on throughout the raid. I think, like you said, that's going to be pretty necessary, and I'm hoping that it is, because it'll be pretty nice to see. Well, actually, that kind of leads into our next topic here, which is going to be the phase 2 of the alpha. Now, this one has a lot for us to talk about. This is going to be the exciting one. This is going to be the one that has things fleshed out in the game, or at least starting to be fleshed out into the game. This phase will be coming out beginning of second quarter 2019. So probably sometime around April, maybe late April, maybe early May. We should be able to see this come out. What is it about this phase that has you guys excited, has you guys hyped about it? Let's go with Ark first. What are you excited for in this?
Well, it's going to be the first time that we really see node progression and how it's going to work. So that's pretty much hands down what I'm most excited about. Obviously, you get to see all the races, and you actually get to start to build your character more customized. And I don't know if it's from Alpha 1 Phase 2, but you're actually going to be able to start saving your formats and then implement them later, even when you find something that you like. But yeah, node progression for sure, all the way up to 4, I think is what they said. So I'm really excited.
Mm-hmm. All right, Doom5, what about you, man?
It's going to be the races and the classes. I want to see the classes. I want to see the races. I want to see their armor. I want to see everything that it can bring to the table, because even though when I come down to it, I'm a hardcore PvP guy and PvE guy when I do raid, it all comes down to, can I play my character? A lot of people always, like, for instance, WoW, will pick the best race for PvP purposes, like the orcs on the horde side are the best for PvP in arenas. Well, that's not me. I'm not that type of guy. I like to play. I have to look at it every time I play. I want to make sure it's something I like, and that's what I'm most interested in, is knowing these classes and races and the armor that they can bring. Because, you know, I want to play an Empyrean elf, but for all I know, the orcs might look really dope.
Yeah.
And I might want to do that instead.
Very true, man. Very true. I'm actually kind of hoping to see what 4 races that they let us play through. It would be nice to see a little bit of variety there. Maybe like a human type, elf type, maybe a dwarf and an orc. We may not get to see Tolnar yet. They said that they are aiming for it. But it'd be pretty cool to actually get to see which races you could actually participate in. For myself, Alpha 2 is going to be the first time we actually get to hear Bear McCreary's music in it. Which, I mean, the music's already very beautiful for for Ashes of Creation, just from what they've shown us so far. But all of that's just been placeholders. It's all been stuff that they could get off of, like freelancer websites, basically, right? So that's going to be the first time we actually start to hear the music that builds the environment, builds the atmosphere that you get to play through in this game. And having, seen the work that he's done previously with, like, Galactica, right? With the different, projects he's been on. I'm pretty excited for that. The other part of it as well is going to be, for myself, is going to be the character customization suite. So kind of more of like the parts that you get to actually, build out for yourself. Because I've said that it's possible this character customization suite is going to go all the way from now until we get into the game launch, right? So, I mean, I'm probably going to spend maybe about 70 hours, maybe more, just building out different characters. Oh yeah, definitely more. But the real big thing I want to talk about is when it comes to this map, it's going to be about a third of the size, or actually about a fourth of the size of the map for the actual game, but it's still 120 square kilometers. What do you guys think about all that?
Like a fourth, maybe even a third, and we're at that size. Holy crap. Like, the immersion is real.
Oh yeah.
Are they aiming for 400? I can't remember what the end result would be.
About 400, yeah. So it's going to be insanely huge. To kind of put that in perspective, most space simulators are about this size. And those are usually pretty large.
Yeah, and these are you're going to have to run across or, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be pretty insanely huge. Which actually kind of begs the question of how things will work out during phase 2, because you will then actually start seeing people set up territories. You will see people actually being able to hold on to their own areas, because it's going to be spread enough where there's not going to be a constant struggle. There's going to be enough room to kind of breathe in that sense. But wow, I mean, that to me, there's some playroom right there. That's some actual, like, let's get down to it. Let's start mapping this world out. Because it's gonna be a next level event for us. Doofet, what's your ideas about that?
Well, now I'm thinking about it. Let's say it's a fourth, and the nodes don't go up past level 4, correct?
Right.
Right. Like you just said, there's a bunch of playing room. Like, yeah, okay, it might be considered a neighboring node with some other people that might be able to level it up. But there's still a lot of room to function, to grab resources. Yeah, you may run into some people, but that's huge. Like, I would say it's almost like finding someone from like almost the opposing node would be like almost finding a needle in a haystack at this point. I mean, because we're not going to have as many people, of course, come launch, but the exploration is just going through my mind right now. It's just like, I want to go find everything in this one little quarter section of this world, and I probably won't even be able to get it done.
Actually, I'm just doing some quick math. So there's gonna be if it's split evenly per server, right? They said there's about 8,500 people that are signed up right now. The max will be 10,000. Let's go with a conservative estimate on that. So about 4,250 persons per server. If you divide that by the 120, so 20, that's about 35 people per square mile, which, again, that's a lot of space. That's definitely a lot of space. It's going to be interesting to see how the guilds work in this too, because for the max guild size, they did confirm is 300. For the first test phase of Alpha 1, it's going to be set at 20. But they did say that, you know, you won't start off at that max level. You actually have to earn your way there. For a lot of the guilds coming into this, building up their nodes and, you know, trying to participate in this, it's going to be interesting to see how these wars will actually work out, because there's not going to be any fast travel. There's no Metropolis stage in this, so there's no chance for a scientific node to actually put that together. You know, it literally could take hours to run from the one side of the map where you started to go fight that other guy that you didn't like at the other side of that map. You know, it's going to be a commitment basis. Like, you have to actually plan this thing out with your team, get everyone ready for it. If someone logs off halfway through, and it's like you just did them a huge disservice because they can't get reinforcements now.
Yeah, but think about that come launch though, when you're trying to find a caravan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there may be paths, but you don't necessarily have to take the path of A. You can go B or C, and trying to find something on this scale, even with, you know, how many people there are at launch, that's going to be tough. And then trying to like just trying to ransack it and, you know, just flank it, whatever the case may be, like whatever the strategy is of those people trying to, you know, capture that caravan, it's going to be rough.
It is. It's really going to be rough. I mean, the best strategy at that point might be to literally just sit outside their node and wait for a caravan to come out. You know, because at that point, like if you wait too long, and even if you have like scouts spread out every quarter mile, you know, it could literally take so long for you to get everyone to that position where it's like pretty much already at the spot it wants to go to. You know, because there's, you know, you're either running there or you're jumping on your horse, and depending on how fast the horse is, it may not be that fast. So it could literally be almost to its destination by the time you actually get anyone there to be able to attack it. So the best strategy might be to literally just sit outside the node and wait for them to launch something.
No, the best strategy is going to have spies in their guilds, but that's going to happen a lot, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Another Eve.
Yep. 100%, man. That's what this game is. It's turning into the EVE Online of, you know, fantasy RPGs. So it's gonna be pretty neat to see how that plays out in this sense, because, you know, EVE itself is a long-standing game. It's been around for what, 15 years?
Yeah.
So
the problem is that with if you do get attacked, like, you know, a mile outside of your place, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's got to be one of the 10 people with us that are, you know, ratting us out. So at the same time, there's going to be an obvious rat, you know.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, like, even if you sit outside of that node, that's time you're wasting as well, like leveling your own node, leveling up your character, getting better gear. So, I mean, you really might just pay a guy to literally just sit out there and say, hey, this thing's starting to move, get your people mobilized.
I don't know. There are people committed, going back to that Eve story. How many years was it that he
like 2
infiltrated?
years? Yeah,
something like that. There are some people that are committed. Unfortunately, I'm not that type of person that's going to go spy on people for 2 years, gain ranks just to screw over them. I mean, yes, it's a great story. It's an amazing story. I don't got time for that.
Nope.
Actually, for this world right here, for Alpha 1 Phase 2, this might be some of the first times we see, you know, like these epic scale battles like you have seen in EVE, you know? Like there was just a story pretty recently in EVE where I think it was like 4,200 ships got together and fought it out. I think it was like $25,000 worth of ships gone in a matter of seconds. And that's like real life money, you know, just gone. You know, these phases will probably be some of the best chances to see that happen, because realistically, I mean, this is the time where you can kind of go out and lose everything, because it's not going to really matter in the long term, right? It's not going to actually matter when we get to launch. You know, if you lost that huge war, meh. you didn't lose anything in the long term. You know, it's all
Perfect
going
time
to get
to test
reset
it.
over. Yep. So I think we're going to see some pretty epic encounters. Actually, I'm hoping that we do. That'd be something to show on Twitch. It'd be something to show on YouTube. It's going to get people hyped for this game, because imagine that. Imagine like your Metropolis being faced off against like an army of 1,000 people who are just hell bent on destroying you so they can level up their node. You know, it's gonna be pretty insane. Yeah, but let's move on to the next thing here. So obviously they said that they will have portions of the housing systems, portion of the crafting and artisan systems. They're also going to have, in addition to that, questing and society guild systems as well. What are some things you guys hope to see in those different systems at this early of a stage?
I'm kind of curious about the professions, mainly over all that, just to see how the professions work. I mean, we have a general idea of how they work, but just in general of like how precise, how detailed, how scarce are these resources to, you know, even start off at to go make. Let's say I was an alchemist and I needed that blue flower over there and, you know, that root from that tree over there. How much am I going to be able to find, and how fast can I actually start to level it up to kind of get another idea of, okay, well, you know, if I want to be an alchemist and I want to make potions, or I want to, you know, do all this crazy stuff, how easy or how hard to easy will it be, on top of how far am I going to have to travel to find these resources, even on a fourth of a map?
Mm-hmm. That's true, man. And it's also depending on like how often they spawn too, if it's going to be spawning in the same areas each time, or if they're actually going to switch it up to be where now it spawns in somewhere else if once you deplete this resources, if they'll actually have that as part of this test. Ark, what's your opinions about that?
Well, just building on what Doomfat was saying, I do think that it would be cool if they still spawned in the same area, and it was really hard to actually like mark it in any way necessarily. So you'd have to build your own, you know, map basically as a gatherer. But yeah, obviously it could be ruined. Like ESO was ruined when you could all of a sudden a little thing pop up on your map with an add-on that said, okay, that's where that thing spawns every time, so I can just go gather, and anybody can. So
going based off that, that's why I'm happy they're not having add-ons, is
right,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just hope that you can go pick up the herb and it'll regrow there in a certain given time. I hope that that's the case, because that's a big part of being a gatherer, is building a way to gather the resources that you need. But at the same time, I hope that it's not easy. You know, I hope they don't let you just put a marker on a map or something like that. You actually have to you know, have a physical map in front of you, or make one on your computer and actually put little points on it or something. But for me, I actually like the housing creator idea. I'm not a big RPer, but for some reason I just really like editing my houses in MMOs. So I want people to walk in and just like be like, whoa, look at all these trophies. Look at this courtyard. This guy spent some time on this and it looks awesome.
Oh yeah, man. And that's actually something that they did say will be in here for phase 2, that's actually really neat, man. I didn't expect it, to be honest. I didn't expect it for the Alpha 1 phase 2 at all. I thought maybe Alpha 2. Maybe we might see it in there, you know? Maybe if not in there, we'll see it like near the end of Alpha 2. But the fact that they're going to have this in here right away, that's something pretty special. Actually, one thing that they are adding in as well, beyond just the merchant system and player trading, which they said that actually will be part of Alpha 1 phase 1 and 2. They have said that regarding the name reservation, so if you do have an Alpha 1 package, that will be actually released around this time. And actually, it's not even just if you have an Alpha 1 package. If it's basically around that phase 2 that you'll be able to start reserving names. The way that they've said that will work will be based off of, first Kickstarter, then Summer Backer, then the Intrepid packages, but also be based off of package level, and will be a free fall, first come, first serve within that package level. So if you donate $10,000 first, if you donate $5,000, $2,500, $1,000, $500, and so on, you'll get kind of first dibs at that. But one thing they did say as a caveat with it, the name reservations are locked per character per server. So from a guild perspective, or even just a perspective of playing with your friends, you're going to have to choose a server pretty much immediately. Because you may not know the server names until they release them along with the name reservations. And, you don't want to lose your name, right? So it's going to be like a pivot. Let's go ahead and get this server. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that actually works out. What are you guys' opinions about that?
All right, so server base, it's like this is a gray area for me because, the server first servers that go up. I mean, what they say there was 3, possibly 2 that it might drop it down to. But the thing is everyone who has that opportunity to jump onto those server first, or the first servers that pop out, they're going to be cramped, and I don't want it to come back to old. I can't say it will, but it's a possibility where it's back in MMO days where I'm rushing home to just log in, type in my password, look at it, and be like, all right, I got 30 minutes to cook dinner and use the restroom, and then I should be in on my server. So it's more of a gray area for me for these servers. If to jump in on it, because if you didn't, then your server might be low populated and it won't be as interesting, and there won't be as much conflict in what everything we're looking for. So I don't know, it's a gray area for me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Ark, what's your opinion, man?
I have no problem with it. I think that they are planning on releasing the server names at the same time of the name reservation, so everybody that wants to play together can. And I think that the more populated server is, the better, as long as they just do it effectively and make it so that you don't have, like you said, you don't want to wait 30 minutes to log into your server because it's too busy. But that's just done by, I think that they could just manage that with common sense of, allowing a certain population, but leaving some headroom in each server, and then cutting it off at some point and creating another one. There's always been better experiences for me with higher population servers. Whenever I'm looking, I always grab the highest population server I can when I'm playing, because the more players, usually the better experience.
Well, right, but they're not sharding, are they?
What do you mean sharding?
Where it's pretty much a different phase of the same server. So you'll be on, let's say you're on server Y, but it gets so overpopulated that they'll shard out, and then you'll just be on a different phasing on that same server. Yeah,
so you mean like a channel, basically.
Kind of.
I don't know if they said anything about doing that, to be honest. I think they're going to split it up into just servers. I'm not sure if they actually have different channels for the servers, or different shards in that case. I do know they're expecting at least 500,000 people to be on the game when it launches, so they're going to need quite a few different servers, because the max population for each server is 30,000. That's 10K concurrent during that time.
Right, but on the safe side, on their end, what do you all think that they should do if, or let's say they look at how many people have backed, how many people have, bought the packages, so on and so forth, and let's say going back into 50,000, 500,000, whatever the number is, because if they come out with too many servers, it could be too spread out for people. So what do y'all have any concerns about that? Because I do.
It's a trick that any game at launch has to work around, right? Because you saw with Bless. With Bless, they had one server for NA, one server for EU, and then they realized, well, crap, we actually have 30,000 people wanting to play, and our servers can only hold like 5,000 each. And so they started adding a bunch of different servers, but the game died right off the bat, right? Because people couldn't jump in and play with each other. I don't think that's going to be so much of an issue for this one, because specifically for the Head Start servers, it's going to be people that have that Head Start package that are in a guild right now. They're going to be wanting to join on those ones. And we know that there's probably about a little over 10,000 people for the Head Start servers. So knowing that there's going to be at least 2 of those, I know that that's probably going to get pretty evenly split. Those two will probably be the ones that most people jump on. But then beyond that, they're going to need at least about 14 different servers to be able to house everyone else. And they've said in the past that they've kind of thought about, how they can work on integrating servers once they do end up dying, but I don't know how that's going to happen. I'm not too worried about it for myself, but I know that it's more than likely going to happen where there's going to be some dead servers later on. Yeah.
But that's usually always the case. I mean,
you can't really avoid it.
You either find a way to merge them or they die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to determine that, especially since this game is very much a build your own story kind of game. If a server dies, does that mean that world essentially is dead? That you lose all that history? I think in a sense it does, right?
That's what it feels like. Yeah, that's what it feels like to me for this game.
Yeah. But I mean, like Ark was saying, that's unfortunately something you can't avoid. You have to come to that finalization, that realization at some point, just because that's how things work. Eventually, you're going to have server decline, and you'll have to begin to merge. That's how it works.
Or you can just be the one person on a giant server and just have the whole place to yourself.
Right? No, that'd be pretty cool. I would do that. It'd be like, oh, look at my empire that I built. My empire of dirt.
It's just for me.
That would be pretty cool.
Right?
It would take forever.
It would take forever.
A lifetime.
But it'd be worth it, man. I think you'd have a lot of fun. That actually does kind of like tie into the economy, and ties into the server health itself, right? For the people that are there. The fact that like they've said now that you can only have a certain number of people in your alliance, you can only have a certain number of people in your guild. You can have like de facto friendships with other guilds that aren't in your alliance. All that's going to tie into whether or not a server will stay active. So I'm expecting at least 4 or 5 servers to stay really, really active, really, really full all the time, just because I know this community. I know the people that are in this AOC Discord right now, just waiting for it to come out. Those people wouldn't be spending a year, well over a year at this point, just waiting just to kind of quit it off the bat. So I think, at the very least, we'll have somewhat of a healthy amount of people, a healthy amount of servers still active, even a couple of years down the road. And I hope that this game continues to just, expand on itself. But all right, let's go ahead and change topics here. Just 1 second. So the last part that we kind of want to talk about is going to be our topic 3 here. One moment. Which is going to be kind of like the icing on the cake for us. So we know that they've already added quite a lot. They're already going to have a lot in this world. What are kind of like the wish list items that you guys really would love to see? May not happen, may be too much right now, but what would be some like wish list items that you'd love to see come out for Ashes during this phase 2 of the Alpha 1 test?
Necromancer.
All right.
That's honestly all I really want. That and the assassin. That's all I want to see.
I can respect that. All right, Ark, what about you, man?
Oh man, I don't even know, to be honest. There's so much that's already going to be in it that I'm excited about. I'm just excited about what they're allowing us to see. I didn't even think about what else I might get instead. So I just hope that if they are going to, like you said earlier, if they are going to allow 4 races in, that they're going to actually do the 4 main races. They're not going to do like 2 types of one race, and you're not going to see orcs at all or something like that. I really hope that we get a good, even stroke of everything that they're going to offer.
Yeah, I would love to see some early raids, just something simple. It doesn't have to be, super in depth, but just an early raid, that we can kind of play through and see kind of what they're looking to envision with like the raid boss and mechanics around that. Plus, I mean, what we'll be seeing in Alpha 1 Phase 2 will be the hybrid system for the combat. So I really do want to see a lot of polish around that. I want to see a lot of how they're going to balance it.
I want to touch bases on that after you're done.
Yeah. Why don't we actually move into that next? Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm excited for the action combat. I think it's a more active and more grabby, pull you in, like if you like a good story. feel for, especially for an MMO. Unfortunately, I do play a lot of World of Warcraft and stuff like that, but one of my favorite MMOs I ever played was WildStar. Okay, yeah, it had that tab targeting system, but it was also a skill-based spell mechanics where, you know, it was all telegraphed. So it wasn't really like aim and shoot. Yeah, there were some spells that were like that, where it was the mix, but you still had a easier time hitting people with the telegraph system because they were a lot larger than just the tab targeting. But my concern is with that is not PvE, but PvP, where there is going to become a lot of complaints because CC is king in PvP. Especially for arena based, or, you know, even one-on-one based, even caravan based. Like if you're trying to catch someone and you do a line shot that, you know, it does a snare at the end of it, and that's the active combat, where, you know, if it's tab target and it hits them and it just slows, they can still get away. And, you know, that's where skill comes in. Yes, skill should be rewarded. That's why, you know, when Steven said, hey, you know, it's not really more damage, it adds a better CC effect to it, that's rewarding enough to me. But I do fear a lot of complaints coming, and I just hope that they stick to their guns. It's not going to be easy. People are going to have to learn how to play. Yeah,
that's very true. I mean, a lot of people that are coming to this game are very much either of one or the other school of thought when it comes to combat and MMOs. You know, like a lot of people are very much diehard tab target only. I don't like action combat. A lot of people are very much the opposite. You know, like I only like action combat. Tab targets for noobs or old people. So I agree. It's going to be very much of a learning curve for a lot of people to be able to get those, to really get those high skill encounters, to really get those high skill plays. You know, where you can essentially, you know, do a lot more, I think, with. So what are your opinions about that, Ark?
I actually like games that do combinations of the two. I actually think that it'll be interesting to see how they implement the reticle with the action combat in this first phase of Alpha 1. But yeah, there is. I think that Doom's right. There's going to be so much complaints about the action combat and how much more effective it can be if you get really good at it. But like they said there, you're going to be able to gear your character one way or the other. So those that really like tab targeting will have a heyday with that when it comes out. Those who like action combat will be able to go full action combat. It appears to be that way if they really want to. So even though they're going to be so different, the balancing will be tough. But I think that as long as, like you said, they stick to their guns, it should work out fine.
Now, going into that, is it, because I do not know this, is it individual spells that you can activate as action combat, or is it all?
No, the skills will be, some skills will be action combat and some skills will be tab targeting, as far as I can tell. So you'll have to choose your skills based on your gameplay style. Okay,
good. Now, going into it, this is also another, I mean, I can't say it's a fear, but it wouldn't make sense to me. If you're a healer and, you know, they're doing CC effects on top of, you know, the extra action combat, why would you even go action combat on a healer if you can just tab target an ally and get a direct heal? To me personally, I just feel like that would be a smarter move.
Well, there could be a big payoff, right? So it could be like, you know, those really large heals, for example, could be the action combat. Whereas like the tab target ones could be like a smaller heal, or we could have like a cooldown to it. Whereas with the action combat, like if you can hit that heal, you can get it off right then and there immediately, and, you know, do a large crit heal, so that way you're not having to worry about that person dying, right? It's all depending on how they balance it out and making that risk versus reward, you know, meaningful. I don't usually play healer myself, but, you know, from what Steven was saying, that, you know, there will be kind of like that give and take with this system. So I think there's definitely going to be a big enough benefit to where you would actually want to do that as a healer.
No, and that's what I hope it is. But, you know, it always comes back down to the people complaining and, you know, everything else, especially from a healer standpoint, because, you know, that's where guilds are really going to shine, is when you have an action combat. God, I'm having such a hard time saying that. Action combat team, raiding, PvP, whatever the case may be, especially for PvE, doing a raid boss, if everyone's doing action combat and everyone's got it down, they look godly compared to the tab targeting, of course. Yeah. But you still can't predict. There's gonna be so much like talking and making sure everyone is like staying within range of everyone, just due to the fact if you jump out of the way of a healer, you ain't getting that heal.
Oh yeah.
And then, you know, you're gonna have healers almost standing like by the tanks, so you're not shooting. Like, let's say you have to shoot a line to hit the person, and the first person it hits, it's gonna heal them instead. So then you're gonna have your tank heals over there in different. It's just gonna take a lot of choreograph.
It will. It really will. And from a guild perspective, that's gonna be where, you know, the top guilds will actually start to shine, right? Like, you're gonna have a lot of like guilds that you may even have a ton of numbers, but they don't have that coordination there to be able to pull that off. And so they may try that the action combat portion of that, and they may fail epically, right? So they may have to switch over to tap target exclusively to make sure that they can still get heals off, they can still succeed in that sense. But then again, you may have a smaller guild that may be really, really well coordinated, that can just get off those really awesome action combat heals that you could almost never kill because they're just so good at it. They have their coordination down pat. They have their tanks always where they need to be. They have their DPS always where they need to be on that front line or back line. It really depends on how those coordinations work. And I think that skill separation, I think that's awesome that this game is actually promoting that, you know, because there's too many games out there that are just way too casual, that don't have that high skill ceiling, or there's games that, you know, like WildStar, that are just way too hardcore. So
it's fun though.
It was a lot of fun. It was definitely, but you know, you have to have that balance. And I think this system does work well with that because it lets you kind of pick and choose what you want to accomplish. One thing that may kind of hinder people from actually doing the action combat is their system specs. You know, they may not have the computer system, you know, with the right GPU or the right CPU to be able to actually pull those off and not get a lot of screen lag or not get a lot of issues on their client side. What do you guys think about that? Like, how do you think that's going to affect choice in that sense?
I'll let you go ahead and take this one.
I'm not sure if it is going to be a huge issue. I think that if you're going to have so much lag on your end from action combat, that there's going to be so much lag for you in general, because the other 40 people around you that are attacking your city are going to be doing all those spells too. So I'm not sure that's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the system requirements yet, really. But I think that they're going to be fine. They'll just be able to lower their settings low enough to play action combat if they want. It won't look very pretty. But I've seen some of those, the scale representations of the action combat, like the cones and that kind of stuff, and they all look very detailed and very large. So when you get 100 people in there and they're all dropping these giant, huge circles on the ground, you know, that are all pretty detailed, I think that it's going to weed out a lot of players anyways, and they're going to have to upgrade even maybe at the lowest settings. Yeah. But I don't know if it'll force them themselves to actually choose a specific gameplay style. I hope it doesn't. I hope that regardless of what they're doing, you know, they can play the style that they want, and they just have to upgrade their PC to play the game or not be able to play it.
It could be. The thing with action combat, though, is a lot of it has to be aimed, right? And if your screen is literally, you know, lagging to where you have to, like, you know, you're having a hard time tracking someone on the screen with your mouse, a tab target might be the way to go in that sense. You know, just because at that point you can literally hit tab, you'll have your target selected, and all you have to do is be facing them somewhat, and you can hit your skills off. So from that perspective, it seems like, you know, for people that do have like lower end systems, mid-tier systems, you know, that might be the best option for them, to be able to make sure that they actually land what they're trying to hit. Because they know at that point they're not going to miss, you know, not necessarily, not unless the person's like directly behind them or something like that. Part of the action combat, though, also goes into how that's going to balance out with the raids, with dungeons, versus PvP. What are you guys' opinions about that? Ark, why don't you go ahead?
It's going to be tough, like, you know. The action combat, though, I mean, it's a month away. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I think that until I see it, I won't know if it's going to be easy to really figure out or not. But I think that it should be doable. I think that if they make the harder to land action combat or action heals very valuable, and the tab targeting is obviously the other end of the spectrum where they're not as valuable but easy to use. I think that anywhere from a cone to a giant circle to being able to tab target, they'll just find a way to balance that out, and it'll work for both. If it works, I know that they're not identical. PvP and PvE obviously have a lot of different aspects, but I think that if they can balance it for one, that it should pretty well work for the other.
So going into it, it all comes into the layout. What is the payoff in my book? Is it more damage and a CC? Is it just a CC, or is it just numbers? It depends on the payout for the action combat for PvE purposes. PvP purposes, to me, tab targeting is going to be obsolete. Like, it's just not. You don't want to do it. I mean, yes, you're going to land hits, but it's all going to be about that action combat, because if you can put out better numbers or even CC, whatever the case may be, whatever gives you that little bit of advantage, you're going to win, as long as you have that skill, of course. Now, you can run around a pillar all goddamn day and just line of sight people, but you're not going to get anything done, where an active or action combat person can. They can run and do it at the same time. That's where the action combat comes in. PvE purposes, that's what I'm saying. What's the payout? Like, am I getting something that's absolutely needed? Do I want, for instance, I've been a healer almost every expansion of WoW, almost every MMO I've played a healer. This is the new expansion where new game where I want to come in as something different. And from that aspect, run and gun is always the best thing. I hate to say it that way. It doesn't matter what the case may be. If you're a melee ranger or range, like, if you can get away, come in, get out type of thing, it's the best thing you can do.
I can definitely agree with that. I think the one problem you may have with action combat in a small area, like in a raid, for example, that's enclosed, you may not be able to use certain skills without falling off like an edge. That means it's always possible, right? Like, a lot of, like, if you go to like BDO, a lot of the skills are very much jump and then dodge to the right or left. If you're on like a little like walkway, like in the dungeon that they showed, for example, where there's like literally a pit that you're like walking over, some of those skills may not be able to be used. Whereas with an action combat skill, you could still get off those without having to necessarily worry about the animation throwing you off the side. There's also the other part of, like, CCs around the boss. There's parts around, like healing and making sure that you can actually get to your DPS or your tank there without having to be super close to them. There's definitely a lot of that could be give and takes. As far as what you can do with it. So I do hope to see more of that during the phase 2 and see how that actually does work out. It would definitely be interesting to see how that's going to work out with the horde mode in phase 1, because I think that's going to be where we get to see those. Is that going to work against a boss? Is that action combat going to actually work relatively well, or is it going to cause issues?
Well, that could go back into, like, let's say we have as a guild, let's say we all went in as action combat. Well, let's say whatever the hardest hit, let's say it was sniper shot from a ranger. I know that's not the name of the ability. I just can't think of it at the moment. The one where they charge it up. Well, maybe that's the hardest hitting ability that out of all the classes is doing the most damage. But let's say it's an action combat ability. Well, maybe that boss has learned to, let's say, sidestep or jump out of the way. That comes back into it learning.
Right. I wonder if you could actually. I wonder if there will be a way to push a boss off the edge, almost like it was with Destiny 1 with the I can't remember his name right now, but the Vault of Glass, whatever it was, where initially there was a cheese where if you use your rocket launchers you could knock the boss off the edge, just because it would hit him and he'd step back, he'd step back. If there's a mechanic where you can push a boss, where you can basically cause them to dodge or roll one way, could that be exploited? And I think it probably could. It's going to be really interesting to see how they can fix things like that, and if they'll be able to actually fix that stuff on the fly too.
As long as I can loot it.
Well, you're only going to be able to loot it if you're a master gatherer. Maybe.
That would be actually kind of interesting. You're like, okay, we need one master gatherer per raid party.
That's what he said they're going to do. Yeah, they said that there's some materials from those raid bosses that if you try to do it and you don't have the right skill, you're going to destroy basically what you work so hard to get.
Yeah, I mean that to a certain extent, even though it's a little bit cumbersome, I actually like that idea though. Because it lets you actually, as a crafter, as a gatherer, be somewhat important in the world. Which in a lot of MMOs, those people unfortunately fall by the wayside. It's like, why do you need one? You need them for like potions, maybe. Sometimes for like runes, but that's about it.
Well, see, what I also hope that they do is something that World of Warcraft implemented in Legion, even though Legion's about to leave in a week. There was one dungeon. I can't remember if it was called the Archway or whatever the case may be. Inside that dungeon, if you had a alchemist or a rogue for the first boss, you can go poison the vial in the dungeon. And then at a certain percentage of health, he'll go drink it, which will heal him and end up giving him a big damage buff. So then you would have to burn him quick. But if you didn't, that's only if you didn't have a rogue or an alchemist to poison that vial. If you had one of them and they poisoned it, he would drink it, instantly die. So it gave meaning to those classes, where also in the dungeon, if you had a paladin, he could find the liar. He could find the deceiver in the illusion of the crowd of the demons. And you would be able to find him, and then you were at a time limit trying to find this person. Hey, this person has gloves and has a white cloak and, is carrying glasses type thing. And you're looking for this person in this huge room. Well, the paladin would run up on everyone, and then once his shields start glowing, that's him. Mm-hmm. So you got to skip that whole phase of trying to find the clues, and everyone got to bring their own little thing. And that's what I hope Ashes does, is when it comes to dungeons, or it comes to questing, or it comes to raiding, or whatever the case may be, you need a little of something else to bring with you, just to make everything feel wanted.
I can definitely agree with that, man. I think that's what he's going to do too. Like he's coming from such a perspective of a gamer, that to not have stuff like that in there, I don't see it. I think he's going to have it in there. Like he's going to have those extra perks that you can go find, or the extra like little mechanics that you can go figure out. Just from his history of how he likes to play games, like how he's been a D&D GM for a while. This guy, Stephen Sharif, he's very much a gamer first, and that's something that I'm excited for, because he's actually creating the game that he wants to play. So I'm hoping he does have it in there. But all right, guys, that's kind of leading up to the end of our podcast today. So first of all, I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds here to kind of say your outro, tell people where they can find you in the community, tell them again a little bit about who you are. Let's go ahead with Doomfat first.
It was great to be back again. You can find me in our Discord, of course. You can find me in the Ashes Discord. I play World of Warcraft. So if you find me on Discord, just hit me up if you want to play World of Warcraft with me. I also play League of Legends. And that's pretty much it right now. I know, it's sad.
All right, go ahead, Ark.
Mine's even sadder. Pretty much right now, all I'm doing is some ESO. I'm always on Discord as well. But yeah, just can't wait to play Ashes of Creation with you guys, and I'll see you in Bear.
Hell yeah, man. So for myself, I'm Sinbad. I'm the GM, the leader of Ember, which is an Ashes of Creation guild. Yeah, you got the show right there. We are all about community here. We're all about making sure this is a home for members away from home. We're a PVX guild. We're going to be focused around the economy, around dominating the market here in Ashes of Creation through both aggressive trade and control of trade. Beyond that, though, we're going to be also rating on a consistent basis. We're going to be doing our best to get those end game resources so we can get some of the best quality gear out there, get our members set up for success. From that, we're also going to be doing a lot of PvP. We're going to be controlling the seas because obviously as Sinbad, I have to be controlling the oceans. That's just kind of how it works. But if you're interested in joining an awesome community, a community that's consistently growing, a community that has some of the best members in the community, veteran gamers, feel free to stop by. We're here in the Discord. We're going to be putting the links down below. You can also visit us at our website, which is embers.us. And I want to say thank you again for watching. We're going to be posting a show every week. Keep tuning in because we'll keep bringing out some pretty awesome content. From now, you guys have a great day, and thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.